What's going on, guys? This is Rob, and my voice is still recovering from San Diego Comic-Con. I literally destroyed my voice while I was there because I was in Hall H, and it was amazing. And I was at Ballroom 20 when they announced all the Marvel animation stuff. So excited for X-Men 97. God, I'm so hyped. It was one hell of a weekend. We are going to have content coming out from over the time that we were in San Diego. But what I want to talk about in this video is I want to talk about Black Panther, right? I want to talk about who the new Black Panther is going to be. And honestly, there's all these different ideas that are circulating around out there, right? If they weren't going to go in the direction of Riri Williams being Ironheart, which is to say like the whole modified Iron Man suit that she reverse engineered on her own, I would say she would be a great person to take over the mantle of Black Panther. The problem is they'd kind of be bringing her out of nowhere. And I think it makes more sense to go with existing like established characters from the Black Panther mythos from the first film to make that person a new Black Panther, as opposed to just snatching up Riri Williams, modifying her story, throwing a Panther suit on her and calling it a day. And to be honest with you guys, that would probably piss off a bunch of fans, right? And here's the thing, right? This is something that I do want to talk about here for a second. I firmly believe Black Panther 2 is going to be the best Marvel Cinematic Universe movie to date. In terms of it grossing the most money, I don't really know. But in terms of it being the best movie they've made, I think it will. Honestly, I think it's going to make a ton of money. I think it'll either rival Endgame or potentially pass it for no other reason than the fact that people are going to want to know, what does this movie look like now that Chadwick Boseman has passed on, right? Like, what does the film look like now, right? It's like when Paul Walker died and that Fast and the Furious movie came out, the one that didn't have him, and it made like $1 billion because everybody wanted to go see it because it's like, what does this movie look like with Paul Walker not in it? So I think that's the same thing that's going to happen with Black Panther 2. You can call it a little bit morbid if you want to, but that's just the nature of people, right? We're inherently curious. And so the reason why I think the movie is going to be so well done is because Disney can't afford to screw it up. If Marvel Studios and Disney come out with a Black Panther 2 film post Chadwick Boseman, and they mishandle even one aspect of that film, people are never going to let them live it down. And people are going to say, well, you're ruining the legacy of Chadwick Boseman, or whatever logic they choose to be upset about it. They're going to hold on to that forever, and it'll literally turn into a PR nightmare. While I wouldn't say that screwing that movie up would like kill the MCU, it would severely tarnish its reputation in the eyes of fans, because whether you want to believe it or not, the Marvel Cinematic Universe is a purely fan-driven industry. The instant fans stop being interested in MCU movies, that's the moment they die, because fans are what keep it propped up, right? The excitement of the films and going to see the films, loving the films, all that kind of stuff. That's why they do so much fan service in those movies, because it's literally built on the enjoyment of fans. And so that's why I think the movie's going to be made so well, because they can't afford to screw it up. Having said that, let's talk about who the new Black Panther is going to be, right? Let's talk about this for a second. So there are like two huge options that are out there, right? The first one obviously is Shuri. And if they want to borrow from the comics, Shuri makes the most sense. For those of you guys who don't know what that means, in Marvel Comics, they had a really, really cool story called Doom War. And this is, I think, going to be, to a degree, elements of Doom War. I think that's going to be a plot of Black Panther 2. That what I think is going to happen here is that, I don't know if Dr. Doom is going to have a hand in it. It'd be really cool if he did. It'd be a great way to introduce his character and to just make him a character that right off the bat you already hate, but you'll love to hate. Right, that's the great thing about Dr. Doom. Like, Dr. Doom is he's the guy, like he's such an amazing character. But in Doom War, what ended up happening is there came a point where Dr. Doom realized, or had already known for a while, but decided to make his move, that Wakandan vibranium had the ability to amplify magical energy. And in order to grant himself more power, what he did is he orchestrated what was in effect a nationalist uprising in Wakanda. And that basically led to the ousting of T'Challa and his wife Storm. And then Shuri, of course, when T'Challa was injured, Shuri became the new Black Panther, and then just kind of stayed there really as more of a figurehead in Wakanda more than anything else, because the nationalists were the ones who were running the show. And that while this whole coup had happened, Dr. Doom had snuck into Wakanda, basically presented himself to the Panther goddess Bast, pled his case about how using all this power, he would make the world better, and he actually would have. And then in turn, Bast let him take all the vibranium from Wakanda back to Latveria, which he used to make himself God. The way that story ended is that in order to defeat Dr. Doom, that basically his source of power had to be eliminated, i.e. Wakandan vibranium. And so T'Challa rendered all Wakandan vibranium across the world inert. It was just a useless chunk of rock. It lost its value. The value like plummeted to zero. The way Wakanda stayed rich is they had bought up a whole bunch of national debt, and so countries are basically going to pay them forever. So that's how they stayed rich. But the fact remains here that I think that what's going to happen in Black Panther 2 as the overarching plot is that with Chadwick Boseman passing, I wouldn't be surprised if there was some kind of grassroots uprising in Wakanda, especially if they come along and they say like Shuri's the new Black Panther, or maybe like Nakia is the new Black Panther, something like that. Somebody that the people refuse to recognize as being the rightful heir to the throne of T'Challa, and then in turn some nationalist group takes hold and tries to oust him. Right? That's one of the best things about Doom War is it was literally a Wakanda nationalist uprising. People who were like, this whole idea of Wakanda being more open to the world and all that kind of stuff, that's a problem. We need to go back to the way things used to be, right? And that was a major focal point when it came to like Black Panther, the aftermath of Captain America and the Winter Soldier, that T'Challa wanted to open the doors of Wakanda for the rest of the world, right? He didn't want to be closed off anymore. So honestly, the stage is set perfectly for there to be some kind of an uprising, right? Where people are just like, no, we need to return ourselves back to our actual roots, right? Back to us as Wakandans, this proud nation. We don't need the outside meddling with us. We need to focus on our heritage, that kind of stuff, and going forward from there, right? So the stage is kind of set for that. So I wouldn't be surprised if, even if that's not the overarching plot, that is an element of the plot. I think it'd be a great way to go for that story, especially because it would really highlight the significance of Chadwick Boseman passing. But the first option here, of course, again, is Shuri. That with Shuri having become Black Panther in the comics as a result of Doom War, and basically operating as Black Panther going forward, with T'Challa maintaining the name, but being more of like a ceremonial figure, it just makes good sense. The biggest issue that you have with this is that Shuri is not trained as a fighter. She's a technological person. Now, sure, maybe the Dora Milaje could train her to become a capable fighter, but it really isn't believable to look at Shuri and to think over the span of however much time has passed since Chadwick Boseman, since T'Challa had basically died in the movie universe itself, because Disney's confirmed that with Black Panther 2 coming out, T'Challa will have died in the MCU. It wouldn't really be believable to say, okay, like maybe 6 months have passed, right? They wouldn't let it go like 3 years before they choose a new Black Panther. So it'd be kind of hard to say, okay, in the span of 6 months, Shuri became every bit the fighter that T'Challa was, even though he'd been training all his life. So that doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. Having said that, what she lacks in terms of like martial arts skill, she could make up for in technology. So she could still be an effective Black Panther, just not in the same way that we're traditionally used to seeing with T'Challa. So Shuri is a viable option here. I think one of the more popular options is Nakia. I think a lot of people look at her and they think she's the best person to do it. And I think really, whether or not she would make a compelling Black Panther, not so far in how she operates as a Black Panther, but in terms of like her motivations for being Black Panther, are really rooted in how it is that T'Challa died. If he died by way of violent means, which is a very risky road to take in the MCU, then certainly her character would be rooted in revenge against whoever it was that ended up killing T'Challa, right? And I doubt it'd be one of those things where she would approach the mantle out of anger, like, I'm so angry T'Challa died, I'm gonna take up his mantle as Black Panther, and woe betide the poor soul that does anything I don't like. I don't really think that would be the case. Having said that, she is capable, right? She is somebody that can certainly hold her own, and she's a fan favorite. Right, she's a fan favorite pick to play the role of Black Panther. What I want to do here is, given those two options, I actually want to sidestep for a second, and I want to go with two other options that I think are easy to consider here, and I think are actually a couple better options than those two. So the first one is one that I think a lot of people are familiar with, and a lot of people even speculated this at one point in time, which is M'Baku. He'd be a great choice to be the new Black Panther, especially if you have him combining the Wakandan tribe and the Jabari people. That would be cool, right? Unify them under one single leadership, right? One single role, or just kind of go forward from there. So I think it'd be a great choice. He has the size, he has like the physical prowess to do it. The difference between M'Baku and T'Challa is that M'Baku does not have the finesse that T'Challa had. T'Challa's movements were fluid, right? They were very, very just clear cut. He was able to move in a way where one move led into another, very Bruce Lee-like in terms of how he fought. But again, I think that's holding on to the depiction of Black Panther as we'd seen him in the MCU versus what the Black Panther character could become later on. And so my real choice here, if the Marvel Cinematic Universe is coming to me and they say, okay, Rob, like Ryan Coogler hits me up, when they were working on the film and Chadwick Boseman had passed and they said, okay, we need a new Black Panther, Rob, who would you pick? I would pick Okoye. I think she'd be the best person to be Black Panther. She's a fighter. She was fiercely loyal to the Panther clan. She was fiercely loyal to the family line. She was the best fighter in the Dora Milaje. She was a little reckless and headstrong. She was stubborn, and she usually always believed that she was right. But all the attributes she demonstrated were the attributes of a great leader. She's respected by the royal family in Wakanda and presumably the rest of the Wakandan people just because of the kind of things she's done. She's very capable. And so I think Okoye is honestly the best choice to be Black Panther, just given the various abilities that she has at her disposal and how effective she would be at Black Panther. But again, the bigger question to ask here is that when it comes down to it, who would the fans be the most receptive to? And so that's my question to you. Who do you want to see take over the role of Black Panther in the Marvel Cinematic Universe? Let me know down in the comments section. But thank you all for watching, and I will catch you all later. Peace.